Rick Grenell is joining us. Rick, obviously the big topic that a lot of people are talking about this morning is Mark Zuckerberg put out a letter to Jim Jordan saying, you know what? You're right. For years, we have been pressured by this administration, by the Biden administration, to even suppress satire, to suppress facts that were coming out, to get involved in things we didn't feel comfortable, but unfortunately we did it. And now we regret those decisions and we're not going to do it moving forward. I couldn't think of a better person to get the response from. Rick, go ahead.
I mean, look, let's be really clear about one thing. We told Zuckerberg, we told Facebook, we told the social media companies that they were doing this. I was the acting DNI when we were telling them to stop. We've seen the lists that were made by the government of conservative influencers that should be silenced because what the government was saying inside the deep state. Individuals were saying these people were pushing misinformation, disinformation. They came up with a whole new term for having opinions. And we told Facebook, they said that they weren't doing it. They said that they were just moderating hate content. And we pushed back on that and even said, you can't do that. Free speech means that you allow speech that you don't like. It's not all approved speech. And we don't want the government and we don't want tech companies making a determination of what's bad speech. By the way, if in the very beginnings of this, they would have moderated on both sides, we wouldn't be in this situation. I certainly would still be calling for free speech, but they completely overplayed their hand by going after only one side, the conservative side. So let me make one thing clear to Mark Zuckerberg. This admission is not good enough. It's way late. You're now admitting that you violated the law. And in order to have a society where when you violate the law, no one is above the law, I think that's the phrase that we keep hearing. I think Facebook executives who did this should be prosecuted. I think we need to send the message that we absolutely will not allow this secrecy to happen. It's not good enough to come clean 2 months before an election when clearly the Republicans are about to take over the Senate, which means Republicans will have the House and the Senate. I'm confident of that. And Donald Trump looks like he's going to be president. And so now what we have is tech executives scrambling to say, oh, uncle, I want to tap out. Have mercy on me. And I'm all for mercy, but I'm also for having the ability to prosecute people. No one is above the law. We absolutely have to have justice.
And Rick, I just want to call back to something that you just said. And when you juxtapose that with this letter, which it comes across as a strong mea culpa from a tech executive, something you're not used to seeing, where they're not just saying the government told us to do so, so we acquiesced. Who else would do something different if the strong arm of the government's coming? But you mentioned that as the way it's laid out in his letter, saying that they would come to them and pressure them to censor certain content. But you're drawing a distinction that earlier than the Biden-Harris administration, as it's talking here, members of the deep state were colluding, for lack of a better term, with Meta, with lists of people that they should be censoring. Am I hearing that correct?
Absolutely correct. I've seen the list. They know that the list exists. This was a list created by the deep state to undermine Donald Trump, to talk about propaganda from Russia as some sort of interference in the elections. And let me be clear, I've said this over and over. Russia pushes propaganda. So do the Chinese. So do a whole bunch of other countries. But what was happening within the deep state and with the far left is they created this whole term to distract and say that Russia was interfering in our elections. That's not true. Russia was interfering in the discussions about our elections. There is no evidence, there never was any evidence that Russia was changing votes or manipulating machines. They were doing what they always do, which is push propaganda. In the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, Americans knew because we used the word propaganda from the Russians. Well, the far left decided to change the word and call it misinformation or disinformation. It's the same old propaganda that the Russians always do. They try to get us to fight. They create bots and they try to inflame the discussion. But the far left immediately started messaging that they were interfering in our elections. They were interfering in our election discussions of issues and topics like they always do. It's called propaganda.
Rick, the fact that this letter is released today or last night after really the investigation started a year ago, thousands of pages of documents have been given to the Judiciary Committee, and then out of the blue, a year later, Mark Zuckerberg decides to release this as he's headed up to the election. Do you think that this is concern about a whistleblower? Do you think it's trying to maybe salvage some of the audience he has left on Facebook? What do you think the intentions or rationale behind this letter at this time is?
Make no mistake, Facebook, which is now called Meta, which owns Instagram, has the best lobbyists, spin artists, and lawyers in the world. They're a massive company with massive support. I am going to get targeted by so many of these big players. They're going to sling mud at me for calling this out, but I don't care. The reality is that this is their spin, their lawyers and their lobbyists with trying to get in front of a story because they know that the conservatives are about to take over and we need to deal with this. No one is above the law. This is not good enough. This is too late. This started in 2016. I would ask just simply of the lobbyists, why didn't you do this in 2017, 2018, when you knew when we were saying you were silencing and going after conservatives? Why didn't you say it then? Because you were too afraid and you believed in this initiative. You wanted to silence conservatives because the majority of the board and the majority of the executives at Meta, at Facebook, at Instagram are all far lefties. We know this from whistleblowers. We know this from Mark Andreessen, who has come forward to say the board is a mess over there. And so this isn't good enough. People need to be prosecuted. And I look forward to being the voice in the Trump administration, pushing for prosecution of all of these people who manipulated us for so many years, gaslit us, and now suddenly want to tap out here at the end when they're losing.
Rick, I did want to take a minute, and thank you for your commentary on that. I did want to take a minute because we are just a few days away from the end of our big ACLJ Life and Liberty Drive, which ends at the end of this month. And look, as you talked about what your work could be in an administration moving forward, what your work could be, the ACLJ is here. The good times, the bad times. We are always here to make sure those voices are being heard. And I wanted to give you a minute because I know you've dealt with us firsthand now for many years as being part of the team. And before being part of the team, you saw firsthand what the ACLJ could do. And I wanted to give you a minute to just encourage our listeners, encourage our viewers, those that are watching. Maybe you're brand new on YouTube or Rumble. You're just joining us right now to get involved with the ACLJ and become an ACLJ member or champion.
Look, when I served in the administration and even before that, I saw groups that were actually doing something, not just talking, not just going out in front of the media and saying something, but actually taking action, hiring people, hiring lawyers, filing briefs. This is a legal fight in so many ways that we're faced with on all fronts. And the reason I joined ACLJ is because, and why I've been committed every single week to being here talking about these issues, is because I have seen firsthand that ACLJ doesn't just talk, they actually do. And I'm so sick and tired of organizations that simply just talk about things. The team, the lawyers at ACLJ are amazing. I just wish that people would help us out through prayers, through talking about our work on social media, amplifying it, asking your friends to donate, you donating if you can. But I can tell you that there's no better organization to actually do what they're talking about, not just issue press releases and show outrage on social media.
Thank you, Rick, so much. We obviously agree, but also thank you for your ongoing weekly engagement and support here of the ACLJ. It's been an honor to have you as part of our team here, as well as everyone. Like I said, not just you, or else talking about even the crew here that's able to do this. We can't do any of this without this incredible team. And if you could, like I always say, if you could turn the camera around, you could see the dozens of people working on this broadcast each and every day, all the incredible content that's put out, and of course, all the legal fights that we're in and we're engaged in each and every day.